Hello, readers of the Community Post. This is Seth from the sports editor for the Community Post. As I alluded to last week, we're kind of going to start doing weekly football previews with our short and condensed prep football season that we're getting in here. First of all, we do have that video series with the Evening Leader, sister paper of ours, where we kind of overlap in coverage with Minster and New Bremen. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do that. We do that weekly as well. He also covered the Evening Leader, also goes over St. Mary's weekly matchup. You'll see some of the same details in that video in here, but this segment is kind of titled Football Quick Hitter. So we'll kind of go over our four schools: Minster, Fort Loramie, Marion Local, and New Bremen, and to kind of just go over their last game and then the matchup they're getting into this week. All right, so our first matchup that we're going to go over this week, we got Minster taking on Coldwater. So looking back to last week, Minster obviously had that 20-0 loss to New Bremen, which was their first loss since 2009. They were doubled up on time of possession. They only had 3 first downs throughout the game. They only had 107 total yards while giving up 334. They also had a lot of issues with the snap, and that kind of just prevented them from getting into their offense and getting into any rhythm at all. They had some alignment issues as well, so that's the quick takes from their last week and kind of looking at for Coldwater. They're 1-0. They're coming off a 21-0 win against St. Henry. They rushed for 179 yards. All 3 of their touchdowns were on the ground, and they gave up just 158 total yards. Miles Blasingame rushed for 84 yards and a touchdown. He also had a pick on defense as well, and Zach McKibben added 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it's another team that, Coldwater is a typically strong MAC program, and Minster saw it last week at New Bremen, a team that liked to run the ball, and it looks like it's going to kind of be more of the same this week as well. They're going to have to figure out some things up front. I stopped earlier at practice this week and talked to Coach Garen Stokes for Minster, and I asked him, everybody in the program obviously wants to get the taste of that out of their mouth, and, it starts in practice. So what was the response like? I talked to him on Tuesday, so they'd already been practicing for a day or so. And then the first thing he said to me, it was ownership. To quote him, a lot of that is my fault. Friday night, we weren't prepared, out of shape, soft, undisciplined, lazy. We couldn't get aligned. A lot of that is coaching. That's on me, that ownership. And then they have to bounce back and go fix things, end quote. And so the game plan, I asked him, what are you preparing for in Coldwater? And it wasn't even about Coldwater. He said that they need to get kind of decent snaps for them to look at on film. So it's really about focusing on their game. With everybody qualified for the playoffs, he talked about them. You just get incrementally better every week. You got 6 weeks. If they do decide after for the playoffs, which it sounds like he is as well. And then so I said, what are the top 3 things that you need to kind of improve on from last week's contest against New Bremen going against Coldwater? And he said, overall, we have to play harder. That's just number 1, to cover up some of those mistakes. Number 2 is align defensively. And then the last thing was just kind of executing what they've been practicing. He's in his 8th year there, so the program knows what he expects of them. So it's just about execution and getting things down there. Next up, we're going to be looking at Fort Loramie and Bethel. Fort Loramie is traveling on the road to Bethel this week. So looking at their first week's matchup against Tri-County North. Last year, they beat them 82-8. And then this year was another similar lopsided score. They won 42-0. They scored 14 points in the first quarter and then had 28 in the second half. They did outgain them 442 yards to 118. One of their senior leaders coming back this year, and who's been a starter since his sophomore year, Colin Moore, he counted 4 touchdowns, 2 passing, 2 rushing, and had a pick that he took to the house on defense. Senior running back Nate Meyer also added another 162 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And Logan Eilerman, who was kind of highlighted in our season preview by head coach Spencer Wells, was as a guy that they needed to, as a tall receiver and somebody that, as a team, they want to be more vertical and passing down the field this year. And he said he needs to do a better job of kind of diagramming plays and getting a new receiver like Logan Eilerman, a tall physical kid, the ball. And he had 2 touchdowns. Max Hoying coming back and is now fully healthy after some off-season surgery. Had led the team with 6 tackles. Damon Mesher, another guy who's going to step up into an even bigger role this year on the team, had 5.5 tackles. So this week, like I said, they traveled to Bethel. Last year they defeated them 59-0. So one of the things I stopped at practice earlier this week, talked to Coach Spencer Wells, and one of the things I asked, what were you kind of most anxious to see out of this group in week 1? And for him, it was just to kind of seeing the things they translated from working all in this condensed offseason to the field, to a competitive game. And one of the things that I touched on, kind of looking at the stats from that game, was the rushing game. One of those things that was worked on with that team replacing 4 of their 5 starters on the offensive line. They had 27 first downs, 18 of them came on the ground. They had 280 yards on the ground. So I asked him for his thoughts, and he said, quote, "We're definitely starting to come together as a unit. There's plenty for us to clean up, and I'm sure the guys would admit that, but they showed some good things there too. Sometimes it takes some time when you have 4 out of 5 new starters, because that position really is 4 to 5 guys 5 guys needing to be one unit. That's pretty unique to the game. You have to get 5 guys on the same page, and we're getting there, and we'll get the other stuff corrected, end quote. And I asked him, I mean, it's kind of hard to take away improvements from a shutout win like that, but, the coaching staffs are always going to find things that they can improve on, small things that can kind of take the program to the next level. And for him, it was position technique across the board, whether it was the footwork, the hand placement, discipline. He said he wanted to see improved technique. And so I asked him kind of what he saw for Bethel this week, and it's they're more of a spread offense this year. Defensively, they're similar to what they saw this past week in Tri-County North, the 4-4 with a cover 3. So, I mean, for him, it was still just about kind of focusing on their program as well, limiting their mistakes, and then kind of building from there and kind of continuing to build on the season. Alrighty, the last matchup we're going to be talking about this week, the New Bremen Cardinals are traveling to take on the Marion local Flyers. Both teams are coming off week 1 with victories. Fort Recovery fell to Marion local, with Marion locals kind of coming from behind in the fourth quarter to take away that win. And New Bremen, of course, coming off that first win against Minster since 2009. So first, we're going to break down the cards for you, kind of their last game. They had 334 yards of offense against Minster, and 247 yards of that came on the ground, with all 3 of the touchdowns coming on the ground as well, with that kind of 3-headed monster running attack of Mitchell Hayes at quarterback, who can kind of run as well. Zach Berkey, who plays linebacker and a bruising running back for them as well, and then Wyatt Dickey, who plays cornerback and running back as well. Mitchell Hayes also went 12 for 14 for 87 yards. Defensively, Ben Blickel, Zach Berkey, and Hunter Williams were leading tacklers for the Cards, kind of disrupting Minster's offense constantly throughout the night before once we could get into their stuff. So I kind of stopped earlier practice this week, talked to head coach Chris Mitt, and asked him kind of what he liked, what he see. And kind of the big things he took away were similar to what we discussed after the win on Friday night. He saw as the game wore on, their line, and they were kind of able to control the line of scrimmage and kind of wear them down as the game went on, as the night went on. And the other 2 big things he mentioned were, one, they came away the game with no big injuries. That was big. And the other one was they like the conditioning. He said he felt that he was pretty happy with that, that they weren't they had it when they needed it, when they needed it in the second half. Of course, kind of similar to Fort Loramie, you're coming away off of a big win like that, but you're always looking for ways to improve. So I said, what do you want to clean up before you kind of take on Marion local? And he said the biggest thing was kind of the mistakes that they had against Minster. They had a lot of procedural penalties at the beginning of the game, kind of as they settled in. I think the first few plays of the game, they just went backwards with the consecutive flags. They had a couple fumbles on their first opening possessions as well. They had, I believe they lost one of them. So he said against a team like Marion local, you can't afford to have those mistakes. So they're going to be some things that they were looking to fine tune and kind of clean up before they take on the Flyers. And then when he said kind of taking a look at Marion local, he said first you got to limit their big plays. Charlie Hulsman had a touchdown against in their scrimmage before the season started against St. Mary's, and then another one the other night. So in their first game on Friday night. So that was a focus for him, taking away that big name receiver, and then another one was kind of how to attack their defense. And it was for him the main talking point was we have to kind of score when we get the chance. A team like Marion local, you can't afford to have missed opportunities like that. So he said whenever we get a chance to put field goals and touchdowns on the board, we need to. Anytime we get points, he's expecting. With it kind of this whole offseason being unique in the sense that they had not as much time, all the teams and coaches with their players. So he said, and it's usually the case, regardless of a pandemic or not, that the defenses are usually kind of ahead of the offenses this season. So and both defenses kind of played strong in their week 1 matchups. So he said he's expecting a low-scoring game, so they need to capitalize on scoring opportunities when they have the chance. And now kind of on the flip side, looking at Marion local, that come from behind 23-14 win against Fort Recovery on Friday. They scored 16 points unanswered in the fourth quarter to come away with the win. The big key there was turnovers. Marion local capitalized on 5 turnovers by Fort Recovery, and they were able to score 14 points on defense. Offensively, they had a balanced attack. They had 139 yards on the ground with a touchdown and 113 yards through the air with 2 touchdowns. They gave up just 45 yards to Fort Recovery on the ground, but 145 through the air. So again, it's a team that was stout against the run, and so something New Bremen likes to do. So that's going to be a key to watch in this game. Again, kind of like our week 1 key matchup, it's going to be in the trenches. It's going to be interesting to see because Marion local is replacing 2 great defensive ends from last year, and obviously New Bremen has that 3-headed rushing attack that they're going to look to use to wear down opponents. Not just these 2, but I think throughout the season that's going to be their game plan to kind of rely on their strengths. For Marion local, sophomore running back Drew Seitz was a big key. He was kind of mentioned in our season preview. He's a big bruising running back. He had a key 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter as well. First-year starter, Carson Griesdorn went 10 for 19 for that 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. Charlie Huelsman had 3 catches for 57 yards and that touchdown, and Peyton Adi had 4 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. Tate Hess, also a sophomore, he saw some time at QB and had a pick on defense as well. So, I mean, head coach Tim Goodwin made it clear that that Carson Griesdorn is definitely their starter, but he said he liked the ability to have that heady sophomore to come in as ready to make plays as well. He said, I asked him, I talked to him on the phone this week as well, and I said, what were you most anxious to see as well, kind of similar to the other coaches in week 1 in your matchup? What were your thoughts on game 1? He said, it's been a different preseason for sure with everything and how it all came together. He said this team has a long way to go, but he's optimistic. He said, we've got some good kids and we'll get there, but we do have a long way to go. And I think that's kind of what any coach is going to want to see after kind of week 1. You're going to find these things to fine tune and continue to get better at. I asked him, it was a team in full recovery that they beat 36-7 last year. I mean, and then how is that matchup different this year? They were trailing kind of 7-0 after the first quarter. Really, the first half, the whole offense sputtered, and they were able to kind of get a touchdown before half to kind of get some momentum. But then they were trailing. I mean, they Fort Recovery scored a touchdown in the third quarter as well and took that 14-7 lead in the fourth quarter before Marion Locals really able to get together. And he said, they were. After they had some injuries last year, but it's one of those deals in football. It's just the way it goes. You have to go next man up. But this year they were kind of fired up and came out really ready to compete. So I mentioned her against a little bit earlier, talking about New Bremen and what they're going to be looking to do and how replacing these defensive ends from Marion Local is going to be kind of a key talking point. He said it's a challenge. Hayes is one of the most dynamic players in the league, and for him, he said we have to limit Mitchell Hayes' big plays. And then he kind of thought about it and said, no, his crucial plays, because I mean, yeah, he can be a big play threat. He's got that speed and he has the ability to throw, but he's kind of the guy they look to. I mean, as the quarterback, as their leader, the field general, when they need a big play, whether it's a first down, third down conversion, things like that. So he said we're going to need to find the things that work against that and then execute them at the right time. And yeah, so that does it for our week 2. Looking at our football matchups again, you can look forward to these every week. We're going to kind of continue to try to break down the football prep week matchups, and then maybe incorporate some coaches and players into these as well in the future. So you can follow us on Facebook at Minster Community Post. We do have a new website as well, minstercommunitypost.com, where we kind of just pump out more content. On Twitter, we're at CPS Sports 1896. We post kind of video highlights, photo galleries, all sorts of stuff like that. So features as well. So be sure to check us out on social media and look for these videos next week. All right, have a good one.